Squeak one out. Colorado.
Actually, with that, is
The best thing up until they lost. They were bored.
Okay.
Lost it, lost it back. So, it was a 5. They played one less game, so
hey,
that's their-
Carter, Jack.
Thank you.
You guys have a lot. Cody, yeah.
I'm good. Okay, it's 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. 6:30, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I seek approval of the agenda.
Approval of the agenda is presented.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brian, did we get any public comment? No public comment. Okay, we have an action item, approval of the abstract of board election. So I think you all have a copy at your table. It's a summary of the results from the election. Any questions, comments? I don't think we've ever had to do this before. Every year.
every election. Move approval of the abstract as presented tonight. Of the previous.
Motion and a second. Questions?
Congratulations. to the party.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5.1, recognition of the outgoing me.
Yes, I would like to recognize our board president for 8 years on the school board, nearly half of that as our board president. And on behalf of the entire district, say thank you. Thank you with both plaque and your nameplate.
Thank you.
Yeah. Picture. There, let's get a picture.
Now they want to keep the whole.
Well, thanks to all of you. I said my goodbyes last meeting. So just thanks for being an awesome board. Thanks to Mark, Laura, and Dave, who I've also served with in my 8 years. I hope that I did a little bit of good to this district, and I know that all of you and our new member will continue doing good things for students. That's what we're here for, is for students.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, I need a motion for adjournment. I heard a motion, yeah, and a second,
Second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I hand it over to Brian.
Thank you, Tori. Back and see us.
I'm here.
Okay, we'll call the order for the new board organizational meeting. Item 7.2 is roll call. Which say that everybody is here. And to the 7.3, the oath of office. Macy. Joe. They solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Director of Large in the Bay Community School District as now or hereafter. Well. Item 7.4 is election of the board president. I'll take nominations.
I nominate Marty Chitty as president of the board. I second that nomination.
Marty on the floor. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none. Take a vote for election of Marty Ginny as president. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Marty Chitty's now board president.
Those are my usual chairs. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for there. So why don't we get started? As John Luke would say, engage. 7.2, we need a, oh, okay, we're done at 7.3.
7.5.
Would entertain any nominations for vice president.
I'll nominate Tom Meyer for vice president.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Tom Meyer to be our vice president. Any discussion? Any alternate proposals? Hearing none, all in favor for Tom Meyer to be the vice president of this board? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Tom. 7.6, operating practices. Basically, it's housekeeping for what the board expected the board president and Brian to do in regards to business, daily business on behalf of the board in its absence. And we'll move into the appointment committees here a little bit. So just need approval. I would ask for approval of 7.6A. Comfortable with that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. B, 7.6B, appointment of board members to committees.
DC, did you have a chance to look at these board assignments and any questions about any of them? Think about where you'd like to, for your added. 7.6.
Use your microphone.
I did list those on page 2 of the packet, the previous committee appointments.
Do you guys want to provide me with a little I guess, summary of delegate assembly and the operations?
Sure, the delegate assembly is really a once a year. It's the first day of the school board association. Tori has done that. We've had other board members do it in her absence. There have been some years that we haven't been able to participate in the delegate assembly. That is at the school board association convention. Legislative liaison, there hasn't been a lot there. Occasionally we'll have contact with myself and whoever that person is. And the interest-based IBC group, that's our collective bargaining group with our teachers.
Any questions?
That being said, I don't know if you have any idea of something you might be interested in. Yeah. Figured we'd let you have the first pick.
How about have some interest in the community resource center advisory board?
I think you would really enjoy that. I still attend,
Which is NCRC.
and then I would do city school committee.
This was recorded.
City school, you typically have it. We haven't had one as of late. Since the gates, because we've been working through the Vision 2040.
Yes.
But we should be wrapping that up Thursday afternoon, so I would anticipate a city school meeting coming up. Probably in the next month or two. So if you want to stay on it.
That's fine. Well, Leanne and I can be on both some school ed and I can see the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good. Great.
I'm okay with what I got. I don't see anything. Because I think on the resource center, I'm already on it. It's just a citizen community. I lost it here as the element, but I was on it. I've been on it since like 2010.
Marty, do you want to take a delegate assembly as well? Since you're relevant to that, or do you want to?
I would do it just with the notice to you guys that making it would be a hardship.
Right, I guess.
But I would take the responsibility of saying, okay, who's going to go from us? I will.
Discuss that, I guess.
Yeah.
We can make it all too.
While we're there,
Yeah.
who's the owner? Since we're talking about me as the lead, who wants the backstop? It's one a year.
So with that, you have to be there on Wednesday, right?
It's the Wednesday, and we've had years where we haven't been able to attend. But yes, it's on the Wednesday.
Not sure about this year, but I'd be willing to do it.
So I have delegate assembly, Marty with Tom as an alternate, legislative liaison, Marty. Story County Conference Board, Joe. IBC, Tom and Leanne. NCRC would be Amisi. School Board, SIAC, Marty. And City School, Leanne and Tom.
Include the Ames conference board too.
Yeah, there's also the Ames conference.
Thank you.
That's actually got some heat under it here this year.
That's been a busy one.
It's been a busy one this year. Usually it's a sleeper, but not this year.
I'll make sure I have that. Thank you.
And then if you want one, I know a couple times I've had to go, I'll be glad to be alternate.
thank everybody for stepping up. You know, school district happens in other forums, and your presence is best. That brings us, we're all good. Everybody's got a clear idea of what we're doing. I'm sure that we have a little different update. I'm sure that would work. So if you need to pick it up here, give it to us in short memo. 8.1, middle school update from Essex Construction. So we wind that down.
Evening.
Okay.
So I know I said this, we're coming down that final home stretch. This week, we're going to be punching out the admin areas and commons areas in the middle school. And ready with that final punch list to start moving back in. We are still on track for the aluminum storefronts doors that we talked about to start the 22nd. And that will continue. Some of it can go during the school year. Some of it's going to have to be on off hours. So it will continue through Christmas break because we will do a chunk of that at Christmas break when the school isn't occupied. We are also still looking at some extra work in the kitchen. We're going to talk about that when I talk about change orders, and in the wrestling room, we'll talk about that with change orders. And then in general, we're getting cleaned up around the job site, around the parking lots. I've touched on it before. I know some of you have heard it in the news. We are still having issues with manpower from contractors. One of the things that we are going to look at to get this all wrapped up is if we have to start bringing supplementary workforces for these last few items to close this out if we're having trouble with the current contracts on site. I would like to talk briefly about there are 2 change orders on the agenda or on the consent agenda tonight. They're divided up in 5 different contracts with 2 main change orders. The first change order is labeled as ASI 35. And that is to, I've talked about it, alluded to it, I think, in the last meeting. In the kitchen, at the dish machine, in the dish room, the drywall behind that dishwasher is pretty ragged after 30 years of operation. So we want to take the dish machine and the 3-compartment pot sink, disconnect those, pull them off the wall, away from the wall, strip the drywall off, make sure we don't have any moisture-related issues behind the wall, and then we reinstall drywall, fiberglass reinforced panels, and then install that dish machine and that pot wash. You will note on your change order summary that there is, so that would include unhooking the electrical, would include Kruk unhooking the plumbing and the HVAC. There's also a line item on there for Estes to do some work. This is one of those supplementary things we were talking about. We're having trouble getting some cost out of other contractors. We tried to step up and said this is what it would take for us to do it. So we could bring our own crews in and complete that drywall work and get it done and taken care of. The other change order is in the wrestling room. What we want to do there is raise the ductwork up out of the way and raise the lights so that the room can be used as more of a multi-purpose room and not just a wrestling room. In other words, gets those lights high enough so that if they're in their play dodgeball, if they still play dodgeball or any other kind of sport like that, it's not going to hit the lights if they're up higher. So that is that's the one that's labeled ASI 37 on the change orders. Any questions on anything? I'll kind of stop, make that brief, and then answer any questions.
This wrestling room duct and light changes has a grand total of $0 cost to the district. Did I read this
So-
correct?
Yeah, so what we're doing there is, all of those items, as I talked before, we have the construction allowance built into each contract. So those would be applied to that allowance for the mechanical contractor, Krug, and the electrical contractor, Longmont. The drywall work that Estes would do, we don't have an allowance built into our contract, so that becomes an addition, comes out of the other contingency line item.
Off the top of your head, do you know where we are? I know it's coming to the end on the contingency dollars. You know that figure as of tonight, taking into account what you just said.
Taking into account, if we, from the last spreadsheet that I did, if we were to spend, so we have some changes that have been out there from contractors' claims and such that we're working through. If we have to pay all of that, which we are not going to, but even if we did, we would still have about $50,000 to the good on the project, on all the contingencies. That makes sense?
Yeah, as we get to the wrap up on that, that number is going to be a real concern to me, see what dollars are left over.
Right.
We consumed, what, 3%? We have 3% contingency on this,
Correct.
and we virtually consumed that to get to this conversation. So, be wanting to hear at your next present to us what that number is,
Right,
as far
yeah,
as the dollars remaining that. So,
right.
thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, one other question regarding the kitchen change order. You had mentioned that you're gonna pull the drywall off and then check to see if there's any other potential water damage. I'm assuming that would be like to the wall structure, the studs or things like that.
Rust on the studs.
Do you anticipate any of that being an issue or?
We would look for rust on the studs, any problems with piping, drywall piping.
If you do find that, you would replace those
Right.
problem areas.
Correct. That would be. So this could grow depending on what we find behind the wall.
Anybody else?
Maybe I missed this, but when will we be fully moved back into the kitchen, and when will we be wrestling in the wrestling room?
So we want the wrestling room has everything stored in right now. That'll start moving out into the admin space and the commons, and we just got to paint the ceiling, and that'll be ready for use.
So where are we
A
from?
month, 2 weeks, 6 weeks?
I would like to, what I would say right now is we get that all punched out, and then we have, I want to say, first part of December there.
Or the wrestlers at right now, are they in the safe room or where are they practicing?
They're back in the same room.
Because we're going to start, if you approve the change order for the lights, for the raising lights, we'll start that right away. You move the stuff in there.
So are we in the substantial completion phase of this?
Some parts are. These last couple, that's what we're getting to this week.
How long before we get to do a punch list walkthrough?
That's what we're looking at doing this week on Thursday.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for, some of these questions are kind of out of the blue, but as we come to the end, it just would be nice to know where we are on a standing basis in regards to the dollars.
No, there's nothing out of the blue, and that's exactly what we're trying. Same thing we would expect to do.
Thank you for your time tonight.
I'll stick around if there's any other questions on the consent agenda.
Brings us to our action agenda. 9.1, Brian, what is SBRC?
School budget review committee.
You have an application for allowable growth in 2 components there. Would you like to explain that technically, please?
Yeah, there's possibility of 3 things that you can do this time of year to raise the allowable growth of the school district. We're going to take advantage of 2 of them based on our enrollment count. One is the open enrollment out number. Basically, it's the count of the open enrollment out that weren't rostered on the listing last year. With that one, increase in the level of growth would be 200,000 or 208,620. And there's also one for limited English proficient students that are taught beyond 5 years. That one's 24,282.72. Basically, what that does is it increases the allowable growth of the school district. Basically, it's like adding onto the possible spending on the personal credit card. It's
These dollars then are placed in the general.
yes, in the general fund budget.
So the offset for the student dollars on the Planet Home are partially offset here, then, correct?
Yes,
Not completely, but
not completely.
anybody have any questions? Brian's did a pretty good job, I think, explaining where we are. It's pretty straightforward. I was struck when I was looking at the board back in here Friday. I don't remember, and that doesn't mean anything, but I don't remember ever getting dollars for ELL students in this respect. Has that been the case in times past, years gone by? Occasionally, it's not an every year thing. Okay, that's maybe why it didn't catch my attention though. Full board. It seems like a slam dunk. So I guess I would ask you guys any thoughts amongst yourselves.
And that is the modified allowable growth, not necessarily these taxes or spending or anything. It's just out there.
I move approval of the modified allowable growth for open enrollment and ELL as presented in 9.1.
We have a motion and a second to approve the allowable growth, modified allowable growth proposal as presented tonight. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. 9.1A. Enrollment out not on prior year count. When's this? That was both of those. Okay. 9.2. Consideration. No, this is a big one. I guess I should look at this over.
No, it's okay. The special board meeting 9.2, I'm actually going to ask the board to consider tabling 9.2.
Why?
We were awaiting the guidance and policy from the School Board Association on this topic of the OSHA mandate employers with 100 or more employees, the vaccination requirements. Board packet went out midday Friday. I was expecting to get that policy sometime this week. We got it actually late Friday afternoon with the guidance from the School Board Association. I intended to send that out to you all today, and we got further notice from the School Board Association this morning to hold off on this. There is a lottery of federal judges that are being selected to hear the lawsuit that 26 states have filed to stop this OSHA requirement. We may know the outcome of that by the end of this week. If they put a stay on the OSHA requirement, we will not need this meeting or this policy. If they don't, then we will need the required policy, and I would likely try to move that up even before November 29th, because we would have to have a number of things in place by December 6th. And that would require us to get information from all of our employees, whether that be proof of vaccination, whether that be waiver or exemption and those kinds of things. So asking that we maybe table this until we know for sure if it's necessary, and then if it is, find a date that for everyone. And I will send the model policy as well as the FAQ and guidance out to all of you tomorrow to review in the event that we would need a special meeting in the near future.
Steve, can I ask a question, just a general question about the proposed OSHA regulations. So reading them, it's saying that if, as an employer, if you have an employee who is not vaccinated, they would have to go through weekly testing.
Correct. So,
Is
yeah,
that
sorry.
at cost of the employer? I'm clear about that.
That, to my understanding, would be the responsibility of the employee. To provide that testing. If the OSHA regulation goes through, it's my understanding that beginning December 6th, anyone without the vaccine or the waiver would need to begin masking at work. If that's still the case, and early January then is the date that they would need to begin providing weekly tests, negative tests. Yeah.
So who's going to say it comes to that, as we just now described, who's doing that monitoring?
That's a good question. But those are things, as I said, there, with that much information to collect, we will put a plan in place with as few people involved as possible. So that's the recommendation and the guidance so far, is to collect that information involving as few people as possible.
Over the course of the weekend, I think that's reading in regards to OSHA doing this. It's a 50-year-old organization that President Nixon brought in. 10 of these have been issued in the entirety of the 50 years. 6 of them were challenged in court. 1 of them withstood or challenged. I wasn't parsing it that far down in all these gibbets. So it's not something that's done at all historically, but in rare instances, that's the track record as I heard it. So I guess we'll see. We're watching a national, something of historic importance play itself out in the very near term. Anyone else got any thoughts?
I'm interested that if it gets that far, what the cost burden would be on an employee that needed testing. What it might be if the school district chose to absorb that cost.
Yeah, I think if it goes that far, once we would know how many were potentially going that route, then we could probably calculate that cost. Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at the overlay of the government's or the governor's pronouncement, where an employee that chooses not to get vaccination and loses their job, for lack of a better legal term, is eligible for employment benefits. My question, anybody, when you bring your answers back to the board, does that apply to us? If somebody would say, fire?
Yes, it does. Based on the guidance that I will provide you tomorrow, that's my understanding.
Lisa?
Is there any sort of time frame in terms of when someone has gotten vaccinated, so the boosters and such, or are they just kind of fully vaccinated if they've gotten them at any point?
I believe it's 2 weeks after your second vaccination that you're considered fully vaccinated. believe so. I don't want to answer that 100%, but I believe that that's true.
Remarks. Dr. Grace asked us to table this one, so just say that it's going to bring back information to the board. I would tell you to keep your calendars available. It would be nice to have everybody have hands on board. This is one of the bigger things that we would deal with here as a district going forward. So what's your email? Brings us, with no further comment, to our consent agenda. We're in line with the district does here at BC. Our bills. Joe does a good job of asking questions on it. We have a mutual old banker friend at Beta that when I came on board, he told me, he said, always read those and ask questions and keep administration on their toes. Yeah, it occurred. There are things that we get, and you see, it's kind of a catch-all. You have the ability as a board member, if you want to talk about something, we can draw it out, say that's now part of the meeting. Or we can go just to do a general approval. Way through it. If it's there, you have the ability to stop the train and have that conversation so that you're clear to your understanding for as best I can. I assume your appointments are on 10.3, Doctor, hiring additional special education associate because we've got all three. They're here.
I did not receive any recommendations today. I know they had a couple of interviews scheduled. In the event that those would have been favorable and worked out, I would have thought of it, but I did not. There's nine. Still there.
So that's just that one position. Are you saying both of these are kind of moved?
Well, she's trying to fill both. We had the one due to resignation at the November 1 board meeting, and the second one is due to a student with significant special needs that just moved into our district.
You're asking approval for both positions.
I will when we get a candidate. I thought we might have the candidates for you tonight, and apparently we don't.
So the question, remind me what happens if we can't find these.
Right now, we're shuffling some folks around to make sure we can do that. And we have some people doubling up in some cases. So yeah, we want to get them filled as soon as we can.
Anybody else see anything in there, bills wise? I see we got another fundraiser. That's our first early graduation request. Always a good read of BC when you see those, read them through. There's some stories that will gladden you and hurt your heart. You have students in the district that have to move farther, faster, and leave us. Tell you what. And you never say anything during this time. You see anything about your school? Any questions on? Usually have something to say, I'm saying again tonight.
On the consent agenda.
Get ready for the comments. Well, Missy, I would tell you, just for the brevity of the meeting, I would say this is something you can look back at and just get yourself on. I would ask approval of the consent agenda as it's placed there in that.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda as is in our agendas tonight. Any further discussion or questions? None. Now, in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Consent agenda passes. 11.1, board member comments. Terry.
So we finished our first term of school because somehow we're already mid-November, no clue how. Now winter sports are starting up, so we had girls basketball start, winter sports start last week, and then boys this week. And I know wrestling starts up this week or starts next week. But I know girls basketball actually plays tonight. And I don't think it's an actual game. I don't remember. But they're playing tonight, so I wish them luck for the first match in the game. And hopefully it goes well. We have a great winter season as our fall season was, because we've been doing great this year, like I said previously. And hopefully Nevada continues our good luck streak and winning streak. So. But I think students are going to be excited for Thanksgiving break since we haven't had a day off yet because of the school year and our schedule. So I think students are going to be glad to have finally the first day off. Otherwise, it's just going well.
I hear it. Was I guess here's this again. How was the play? I know we broke it up in football team. I was in tennis there. Going on Thursday or anything?
It was really good. I know it was a little weird with the football game of that Friday, but we still had high attendance on our Thursday performance, even though that was a quick turnaround to put it then. But it went well, and it was great success for John. We had actually a lot of tickets sold compared to like last year, so it was great turnout.
Good. A great venue to use it, or a great venue to do it. I'm glad to see people take advantage of it. Anybody else? Macy, you got anything to tell the community?
Happy to be here. It's a little bit of a learning curve, how things function and organize, but you know, just be an advocate and to listen in. So
Congratulations to the football team. Thank you for putting me out there. The interesting school year here going forward. I will challenge the board at each meeting to contribute. We want to hear your voices and want to hear your thoughts. So I want us to engage and see what we get there. We've had some very bright people. I mean, Tori gave you some of the names. You served with all those. You know, sometimes it was a verbal scrum where ideas team went from the board table and the very best was left, and we live in the aftermath of some wise decisions and some good choices. So I encourage us to do no less. 11.2, board calendar. Talked about earlier, we might have an impromptu meeting, and I strongly encourage you as of tonight to make yourself available. That should come up. It will be far-reaching implications. So
On that matter, if at all possible, if we do happen to have one, we can avoid Tuesday mornings at 10 and 4.
okay.
Yeah, and if that's the only item, and if we have to have it, it's a required policy. So I would anticipate that it'd be a very short meeting, but I will throw out some various times. We have done those one topic meetings, say at noon or 12:30 from time to time. So once we know that, I'll throw out some options so to make sure that everyone has the best option.
I don't want to leave this meeting without saying thank you to Dave Cruz for showing the Union Rotary through this building here 2 weeks ago. Very well attended. I think we had 10, 11. So the more that we can get people in here and show them what we have done on a property acquisition and refurbishment to the school needs, I think that helps us in standing in the community for our credibility. And I think we did a good job, frankly. I'm pretty impressed with the facility. That said, that was a good meeting, folks. Feels good to be back. Got a new team. See what we can do. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Rusty.
Oh, trust me, I can charge you 10 questions. Won't happen. Just ask them.
There's a dumb question.
Yeah, I was gonna-
Yeah.
I was just curious. I just wanted to question Victoria mentioned something. What perspective? Yeah.